4 years ago, Rob Beauchamp had a secure job with the Royal Bank. Today, he's a bush pilot, living out a boyhood fantasy in a World War II aircraft.
Flying an aircraft, it's like being a solo violinist at Carnegie Hall. You've got to do your thing right then and there, and you've got to do it right. And the degree to which you do it, either right or wrong, is very, very critical. There's a sense of satisfaction there that's a lot greater than having made a $200,000 or $300,000 loan, you know, like when I worked in the bank.
Since Marco Polo went east looking for spices to kill the taste of his meat, Europeans have been obsessed with reaching outward. In the process, we have created mythical heroes. In our own time, the myth has settled on the bush pilot. More than just an aeroplane driver, the bush pilot is history itself, pushing the frontier north. But on a blustery day on the northern shores of Lake Winnipeg, history seems a long way away.
Looks like we're going to get awfully wet if we don't get out of here very shortly. We're going to get very wet.
Coming ready.
Want to get in a Norseman now?
What for?
Today?
What for?
So you don't want to get wet?
You gonna take me for a ride?
Sure, where do you want to go?
At the southern end of Lake Winnipeg, where farmland ends and bush begins, sits Northway Aviation, home base for Rob Beauchamp and the aeroplanes he flies. Northway Aviation began 25 years ago, when a trapper and fisherman named Geary Johnson decided that flying over the bush was better than walking through it. His son, Jim, brought up in the world of bush flying, does not share Rob Beauchamp's romantic view of the bush pilot's job.
Well, to a large degree, he's either a taxi driver or a bus driver. If you're a chartered pilot, you're a taxi driver. If you're a scheduled pilot, you're a bus driver. It's as simple as that. He's about finished, Rob.
To early aviators flying north after World War I, the north looked much as it had when the first Europeans arrived 3 centuries earlier. In 1690, Henry Kelsey took canoes up the Hayes River. In 1920, the canoe was still the universal mode of summertime transportation. The north was a crucible, hard and treacherous, larger than life. It was also full to the brim with wealth, and as sure as there was gold in the ground, there would be men coming north to dig it out. Of course, the dirty work was seldom done by those who got rich. Harry Geimer has been a prospector since he first came north in 1928, in the days before diamond drills and motorboats, when one site was a whole summer's work, and the tools were a pick, a shovel, a wheelbarrow, and even a blacksmith's forge.
They'd have to pack all that stuff in from the Paw, all the way up the Saskatchewan River and past Cumberland House, which is one of the oldest fur trading posts in the country. And they'd pack that all in here by hand. And it's an awful lot of work. And then, like I can remember when I first went out in the bush up on the Churchill River, it was, all they give me was a tent, and that was it. Never had any toilet paper, never, even, the old-timers would laugh at you if you took a a magazine along and used it. They used to use brass or something like that. And then after they started getting the airplane, well, you didn't have to pack all that stuff, and then you started living better.
The aeroplane was ideally suited to life in the bush. Every lake or patch of snow was a landing strip. Impossible muskeg became so much scenery. Northern concepts of speed and distance were transformed.
I'll never forget my first airplane ride from Schiss Lake going up to Churchill River. And Cap Stevenson, he was the pilot. They named the Winnipeg flying field later on after him. We're flying along. We're going, I don't know, about 75, 80 miles an hour, but I thought, boy, that was going some. And the window was open a little bit. I figured if I put my finger out there, I was going so fast it whipped my finger off. So, but young, I figured I'd take a chance. I put my finger out, nothing happened. Put my whole finger out, nothing. Put my hand out, nothing. Pretty soon I was flying along with my whole arm out, waving up and down, and then I looked down and I started hollering at the pilot, hey, look at the duck down there. And just then the duck got out of the water and shook his body and horns on it about 4 feet across. Oh, there was a moose, yeah.
If I could go back 40 or 50 years and start flying then, that would be just great. That'd be ducky for me. I'd really like to go back. I'm displaced. I'm in the wrong time. I think that in those days it was so much better to be a pilot because it was a pioneering thing. You were doing something that was totally new and you were learning while you done it.
I admire a lot of the old guys. More than anything, I guess I admire them for the ability to operate in the severe cold in the wintertime. To operate in 40, 50 below with that junk that they were flying.
Well, I don't think the bush pilot of today has anywhere near the problems that the ones that came before us had. For instance, we've got fairly good radio equipment. We're never more than 15, 20, or maybe half an hour from some form of civilization, at least other people that we can land and communicate with. Let our problems be known if we have any. In the old days, it wasn't quite that simple. You'd take off and be gone maybe for 2 or 3 months. Your base wouldn't know where you are or anything.
Well, with the equipment we had, it was a little rough at times. We had an open cockpit airplane and flew in temperatures as low as 55 below with no heaters or anything else. And the passengers were just about as uncomfortable as we were.
By 1960, Hank Parsons had logged 18,000 hours over the North. It had begun in the Depression, when he and his brother, with a second-hand biplane, headed north to find work.
The next morning, we went up to Savant Lake, with $25 in their pocket and a full tank of gas. And, well, we found out it wasn't such an easy way of making a living. It wasn't near the business there that we expected. And the fact that it was a depression, anybody with an airplane would go to any place they thought they could make a few bucks.
The airplane was an idea whose time had come. Harold Farrington made the first commercial flight to the Red Lake goldfields in 1926. By that summer, Red Lake was the busiest airport in the world. In 1928, Punch Dickens reached the Arctic Ocean. He brought the mail, the Edmonton papers, and fresh Florida oranges. Northern isolation was coming to an end, and the men who were ending it were becoming legends just by doing their jobs.
We'd start out in the morning. Well, a typical day would be maybe 5 o'clock in the morning. And we'd have to pick up, go in and pick up some fishermen or a load of fish, or take a diamond drill out. And then we'd come back and there might be an emergency call, a seriously injured person or sick person in one of these Indian reservations or mining camps, and we'd end up there. The next, there might be a report of a forest fire starting. So we never knew when we went to work in the morning what was going to develop during the day. We could be doing 3 or 4 different types of trips.
So where am I going?
You'll be going to Poplar River,
Yeah.
3 lakes. There's 6 guys and probably 2 canoes.
Yeah.
So you might have to make 2 shuttles in between, then back to Black River, and then just come south.
Oh, okay.
That should be the story. And I'll go to Lewis Lake, 3 lakes, and back.
It's 50 years now since Hank Parsons learned to fly and Punch Dickens first reached the Arctic. But the bush pilot's north is still a frontier, and the frontier is reflected in his equipment and his attitude.
If I'm going to fly, I really enjoy flying, but the milk run type of thing really turns me off, like the Air Canada Pacific Western type thing. I could never do that. Why not work in the bank? It's the same thing. You wear a white shirt, tie, yes sir, no sir. You know, you're sitting at a desk, an autopilot's doing all the flying for you. And when he's not doing the flying, the first officer is, so. I get a lot of satisfaction from what I do.
Come on.
300 years ago, Scottish fur traders brought the Indians the iron tools that would make their lives easier and would make them forever dependent on the products of Europe. Today, in his weekly visit to the communities around Lake Winnipeg, Rob Beauchamp supplies that dependence. In addition to the fur traders' blankets, guns, and axes, the cargoes of this modern voyageur include lumber, frozen meat, fresh vegetables, civil servants, and disposable diapers. While Rob Beauchamp supplies the communities on the shores of Lake Winnipeg, his boss, Jim Johnson, heads inland toward the remote lakes of eastern Manitoba. His job today is to find scattered native groups harvesting wild rice among these lakes and buy as much of their rice as he can for a dealer in Chicago. This is the bush pilot's traditional role, the go-between, the representative of Southern society who must meet the North on its own terms and persuade it to give up its wealth. Despite their outboard motors, the Saulteaux people of Pungassi gather the wild rice in much the way they have for centuries. It is here, in this land where roads don't yet go, that the age-old relationship between white trader and native producer still remains. Their ancestors made the decision to trade peacefully with the European, a decision they could never reverse. Today, these are the lucky ones. They still have something the white man wants, and they can still hold out for the highest bidder.
How much a pound you getting for rice now?
$2 a pound.
That's all.
much you pay for a pound?
Lots.
How many?
2 1/4.
2 1/4?
Yeah.
Kanske kan person nästa bara med nomen upp till kurs. $2 1/4, eh?
Yeah.
Where did you buy? Did you buy someplace already? After that.
In 2 days, Jim Johnson will spend $10,000 on behalf of the dealers in Chicago. To do it, and do it well, he has spent a lifetime learning and adapting to the North and its people. It is a timeless scene, as old as trading itself, one that reflects a high degree of mutual respect and mutual understanding. But more and more, it is a scene that belongs to the past. For today, as always, change in the North revolves around the pursuit of wealth. But in the 20th century, the wealth of the North lies not in its lakes and forests, but under them. "300 miles north of the rice harvest sits Thompson, company town to Inco Metals, rising out of the bush like a suburb without a city. Thompson is the future of the North, a future that began 30 years ago in the mining boom that followed World War II. In the feverish activity of rebuilding for peace, minerals played a key role. Mining stocks soared as eager investors poured money into the search for copper, lead, zinc, nickel, and gold. In the North, salad days for the bush pilots. Prospectors went into the bush by the plane load, and with them, diamond drills, survey crews, gasoline, oil, food, and camp supplies. Often there were not enough planes to do all the work. Jack Lamb and his brother Greg, flying out of the Paw, Manitoba, spent these years supplying camps right across the North.
You'd be gone for 3 or 4 months at a crack, you see.
But those are 200, 250-hour months. All you want to do is get that trip over with, get your money, go to the next trip.
If the work is there, just keep going with it. Grow, 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 grow.
In 1956, it all paid off. Inco discovered vast deposits of nickel in northern Manitoba. Using all the power of post-war technology and the immense cash reserves of a multinational corporation, Inco set out to build a mining town that would be like no mining town before it. The new city would take the name of John Fairfield Thompson, the mining executive who controlled Inco, from his office on Wall Street. Thompson, a generation later, is a community of 20,000, with no downtown, but with 4 shopping centers, where any Southerner can feel at home. Today, the need to adapt to the North, to meet it on its own terms and change with it, no longer exists. In Thompson, the North of the bush pilot, the fur trader, and the Indian has simply been eliminated. And now, there are no new bush planes being produced anywhere in the world. The planes that replace them will require runways. They will carry bigger loads, but they won't land here. Whether we call this progress or simply an obsession with growth depends entirely on our point of view.
So the white man, thinks he's always, doing good by putting roads in where roads don't belong. If every place in the world should have a road, they should put a road to the top of Mount Everest for the people who want to climb there so they don't have to work so hard. It's unfortunate that governments don't see this. There are areas that people just shouldn't have a road into so that they can do the things that they want to do. A float plane will never leave a mark in the water, nor will a canoe. All you hear is the sound, you see the ripple in the water. In a few minutes, it's all gone.